Dennis McQuail, 1972, described an audience as being a temporary collective. As a group, we feel our music video is aimed at both a partly mainstream and partly niche audience. Indie is a genre which, alongside other genres, has a plethora of subgenres that divide into sections such as indie pop, indie folk, and in our case, indie rock.
Julian McDougall, 2009, stated that due to online age, these audiences are not as stable as they were before the introduction of digital technologies into this area of the media. We tried to connect to these temporary collectives by creating a promotional package for a local indie band called Fraser, including a music video, digipack and poster. John Hartley, 1987, and Clark Attell, 2007, stated that we need to keep in constant communication with our identified audience. This is to gain their feedback and to reflect these comments in our product to make it look as professional and realistic as possible. I did this through not only the distribution of our product through social networking sites such as Facebook and Twitter, Web 2.0, O'Reilly 2004, but also through focus groups, peer-to-peer feedback and online surveys such as SurveyMonkey. We also use actors of the same age and a close gender split to communicate to our audience through the music video, as it is relatable, meaning more people will watch it, widening Fraser's viewership.
We used a range of data collection methods to gain feedback from our audience. SurveyMonkey, focus groups, and peer-to-peer feedback were the main methods of communication we used to gain this feedback. As stated earlier, SurveyMonkey was used to gain feedback from the rest of the people in our class. This formed our primary research as we carried this out ourselves.
These were not necessarily in the demographic we were trying to reach, so some of the feedback they gave us was seen as invalid. We gained feedback from other groups in our class at the pre-production stage after presenting our media pitch to them. We had a 70-30 split between females and males. This is a complete juxtaposition of what we set out to our target audience. This could also mean parts of the data are again invalid.
In terms of narrative, we decided to plan out and use a hybrid format for our video. One section is of the band performing their song, Shine the Light, live, and the second section is of our narrative. This consisted of our main character, who is the prince figure, going to a bar to meet a girl. Coincidentally, this is the same bar the band are performing. To create a disequilibrium, we had the girl not turn up, and our complication resolved around the protagonist going out and getting drunk to get over the disappointment, a literal case of drowning his sorrows, which then leads to a long walk home down West Street in Sheffield.
The idea was then to keep the ending open to the audience interpretation by having our main character pass out on the floor. We also toyed with the idea of having him wake up the next morning in a bed looking extremely rough, and we even filmed a sequence of this but decided not to put it in the final cut.
After asking the qualitative questions, what do you think, to our narrative section of the music video, we received feedback such as easy to follow, suits the genre, and it is simple.
One of our main goals was to follow these comments. However, during the early stages of our music video's production, after gaining feedback from our tutor, we found that we did not reflect these comments. It was evident we still had parts of our narrative missing.
We needed then to include another insert shot in order to make the narrative easier to follow. The main reason for this happening is it is much easier to pitch a narrative down to an audience in words. When it comes to actually creating the product, we found that placing together our ideas was much more difficult than anticipated due to lack of shot types and coverage.
We needed then to include another insert shot in order to make the narrative easy to follow. The main reason for this happening is that it is much easier to pitch a narrative down to an audience in words. When it comes to actually creating the product, we found that placing together ideas was much more difficult than anticipated due to the lack of shot types we covered.
We had comments from our tutor stating that she knew what was happening with the narrative. However, this was only because she knew our plan and that a first-time viewer of the video would not understand straight away. We took on these comments and went back to Adobe Premiere CS 5.5. We implemented ghosting shots in order to connote the drunkenness, as this was not initially totally obvious to the viewer, and used a fade to white effects and a black and white filter to show the flashbacks.
We found that this did cause more problems in terms of audience interpretation, as two focus group members questioned the use of the black and white, asking, "What is this part for?" This feedback was crucial in the final stages of our music video's production, as without it, the open narrative would have confused the viewer further, making the video pointless.
90% of our audience also told us the amount of characters we featured was enough. This was good feedback for us in terms of our own creativity and the struggles we were already facing in terms of narrative. 3 characters was more than enough as including more important figures would overcomplicate things further. The feedback from resources such as focus groups and peer-to-peer feedback allowed us to change aspects of the video that we are aware our target audience wants to see, as our audience were right in front of us.
For instance, our focus group wanted to see more of our protagonist getting drunk, as at the current time we only showed the prince drinking 2 pints, and it was not believable enough that he was drunk. This led to us going out and completing additional filming of the prince doing shots in a bar, in order to add verisimilitude to our video, so it became more believable to the audience and was representational of our subgenre of indie. It was vital we adhered to the stereotypes of the genre in order to successfully create a product that had targeted our audience, but was also relatable to them.
Another piece of qualitative data we received came from our focus groups regarding the performance section of the music video, just before the first chorus. The focus group pointed out to us that some of the lip syncing did not match the lyrics, and we know that this is an essential part of any music video, as the music must match the visuals. Andrew Goodwin's theory, 1992, as this is a basic code and convention of all music videos. We went back into Adobe Premiere CS 5.5 and moved a few other frames along, using the drag tool to correct the point in order to create perfect lip syncing. This again added to the verisimilitude of our music video, in that what you would expect the band to actually be performing the song correctly. In making these changes, we successfully fulfilled the purpose of a promotional video.
We also posted our video in different stages of completion onto the video sharing site, YouTube, in order to gain a response. However, due to the lack of promotion on our part, failure to use web apps such as Twitter and Facebook to promote, we did not receive an adequate amount of feedback to make any significant changes to our video. As a group then, we were mainly just given verbal feedback in regards to our work in progress.
The main theme of feedback we gained during the post-production stage after amending problems with verisimilitude and narrative structure were that the narrative is relatable to a wider audience, not just indie, and that a sense of realism was created. For us, this really linked in with our subculture of indie, as this culture in the indie genre of music is all about realism and down to earth.
Daniel Chandler, 2001, talks about how there is currently a demand push and how technologies are forced upon us as a society. We deliberately use technologies as little as possible to gain qualitative feedback from our audience, as we felt that speaking to the target audience face-to-face is not only a more direct way of contacting them, but also adds a more personal element to the production of our promotional packages, as we can read off our focus group's emotions to tell their true answer.
However, we should have used technologies more, as our target audience of 18 to 24-year-olds are all digital natives and often use social media to put across their points of view. As well as a music video, we individually created ancillary products consisting of a digipack and promotional poster for Fraser. Personally, I did not gain feedback from our specific target audience for these products, as I felt I did not need it. I felt purely looking at existing real media text and gaining feedback from my friends and parents was sufficient. If I was to make these products again, I would gain feedback from my target audience, both through Web 2.0 technologies and traditional focus groups and peer-to-peer feedback to focus on our subculture. Dick Hebdige, 1979.